When I was staying in the US, whenever I would switch on the news channels, there was more news coverage about Pakistan than India. You see, the one that creates more noise, more troubles, more pain has the maximum focus. And that is how Rahu has been the foremost popular subject of the masses. Because what pains the most needs more attention than the one who is making no noise, no trouble, no problems. Fear has more following than faith. Fear sells faster than faith. That is the reality of human life, and it has been from the very beginning of time. Fear is the most basic emotion we have. Fear is primal. Fear sells until you stop buying it. Rahu is that fear. And so Rahu is the most in-demand entity of all planets that you have in your birth chart. On a deeper level, it is the Rahu-Ketu axis that has much to say than that of the rest of the planets. You may have the best Raja Yogas and just a malefic touch of Rahu or Ketu and all the so-called Raj Yogas evaporate. Somebody asked, how come Rahu becomes so important, so decisive, so powerful in deciding the course of life? For that, you have to understand Rahu. And to understand, you have to go beyond the mind. As long as you are following your mind, you may talk, you may read, millions and millions of astrology books you may read, and yet you never would self-realize what a Rahu is all about. Do not listen to the voice of the mind. Listen to the voice of the heart. The mind wavers, the heart does not. The mind is the home of doubts, reasoning, and theories. The heart, when purified, becomes the dwelling of the beloved. Rid your heart of low desires, malice, selfishness, and God will manifest in you as your true self, says Avatar Meher Baba. A Rahuish man or woman never understands this. They become the mind, they follow their mind, and it is this mind that leads them to many miseries, problems, and troubles. And yet they never realize until the last moment of their life. They simply keep following their mind, and the mind never lets them rest in peace. You know why? Because the nature of the mind is in itself of being restless. The more you follow your mind, the more you become restless. But ignorance never lets you realize this truth. And this ignorance is Rahu. Rahu is that smoke which never lets you see through the heart, but always compels you to see through the mind. And that is where you go on missing the many wonderful truths of life. Why Rahu becomes so important in the affairs of human beings? Your existence, your birth in this human form is because of Rahu. This Rahu is your desire. You are born in human form to satisfy your desires. Desire is what brings you back in the physical form. And so it is not Jupiter, not Venus, not Moon, not Mars, not Saturn, but solely Rahu that leads you to human birth. This human birth then goes on satisfying the many desires, unfinished businesses. So Rahu is the one who drives every human being towards satisfying the desires that simply never end. And so Rahu, desires, become the enemy of your self growth. But ironically, people don't get it, and so they just keep running behind their desires, thinking that once they get a Mercedes, they can slow down. Rahu, the desire, will let them slow down. But that never happens. After one Mercedes, you want to have one more BMW, and then more and more and more. This is how Rahu is, more. And it is this desire of more and more that leads you to the acts of sin. And the greatest irony is that because you are following your mind, you just never realize this. You are so much engaged in accumulating more and more and more.